When injury takes you out of the game, it's time for your team to step up. At Allina Health Orthopedics, you'll get expert care backed by a whole health system of providers. With records, test results, and care team, you are always close to the care you need. Schedule now at allinahealth.org/ortho. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Sound of the Loons, presented by Allina Health Orthopedics. I am in cloudy, kind of overcast Minnesota. I believe Mark Watson is in maybe sunny California, but either way, I get the pleasure to be joined by Mark Watson, the one and only Mark Watson, live and at preseason, I believe. So we'll get the scoop. But thanks, Mark, for joining me this morning.
Thanks, Kyndra, and always. And yes, it is sunny. It is sunny.
Yeah. We've been seeing those pictures and that footage come out of California from Coachella. I mean, I'm not going to lie. The palm trees, the mountains in the background, the green grass, I'm a little jealous.
No, it's I will tell you, it does get cold here. And cold, let's use cold in a relative term. It got down to almost 40 last night. But no, it's
goodness.
Good. It's the facilities are great. It really is 70 and sunny every day. So in terms of good conditions to finish off our preseason, it's pretty good. Fields are great. It's at this polo club. There's honestly fields as far as the eye can see. So it's a pretty good spot, and weather and all the things that you really want in a preseason are all here for us.
And real grass. I remember going to the Surf Cup back in the day in San Diego and playing on those polo grounds and watching games on those polo grounds. It's literally like a putting green. It's like, if you watch the Waste Management Phoenix Open last week during the Super Bowl time and you see that grass in those fairways, that's kind of what it's like. And I know Adrian and the players and everybody appreciate, and you can appreciate, having been a former player and coach, the grass and playing on real surfaces like that before you head into the regular season.
No, it's true. And literally, like, there's not better growing conditions for grass or anything really than what they have here. So sunlight and the perfect temperature. So no, that's why we come. There's teams coming in and out, but I think there's 12 teams here, and it's becoming one of the prime destinations for preseason. The hotels are great. Everything's pretty close. And, like I said, the big thing for us is the quality of the fields, and it's got it here. So we're in a good spot.
I want to ask you about that quick before we dive into sort of the roster and the additions, because we did get to chat with you before. I think it was the last podcast we had of 2022 and sort of what the team was looking for, recapping 2022 in the season, and sort of maybe feeling like what holes do you need to fill, and also where do you need some depth. But when you are looking at 2023, and you guys have done a few different preseason tournaments now, you've done the Portland thing a couple times, going to Florida, been to Phoenix, been to Tucson. What are some of the boxes that you check? Is it the competition, the conditions, is it all of the above? Because this seems like a really good group that's been in and out of Coachella to get some real quality competition in there.
So you're right. It's all of the above. And sometimes it's, if you do things for a couple of years, you want to change. So we typically do Florida, in and around Central Florida. So Orlando, we've done Melbourne, Florida. So you want the hotel, you want weather, and you want teams in that vicinity. So Florida certainly has that for the first phase of preseason. And then, they build these little mini tournaments into the last sort of 10 days. So you play a Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, going into the final weekend of the season. So, I think I know a couple of teams came here last year, but this is the first year that teams have really come en masse. Like I said, I think there's 12 teams. So there's games going on everywhere. The facilities, hotel, and like I said, the training ground are first class. And that's what you're looking for. It's not a difficult, combination. The hotels are excellent. The fields are first class. The weather's great. We've done the Portland tournament in the past, and the weather's not great there. It's 42 and rain's coming in sideways. So 70 and sunny on a perfect field, and you've got access to incredible facilities. There's probably 12 fields, maybe 15 fields at this facility. So teams have their own little training area, kind of, fenced off so no one can see them. Teams are very secretive in terms of what they do at training. So that's always a concern. You're training right next to the other team and you're working on certain things. So there's a fence around each team's designated training facility or training area. And then there's 3 main match fields. So it's really got it all. And, ultimately it's a really simple combination, but we have everything here. And I think this will be a place that teams come for a long time. It may be the perfect spot.
Well, and it's crazy when you think about, even when you talk about hotels, and I know sometimes like Sean Buckley or, some of the other people that have to do activations, or you're trying to do other things on the side, you're trying to switch it up, or you need a training room, you need this, like, those are all things. You're not just talking about the pitch that you're going to play on. This is like all encompassing, or accessibility to like walk to things. And you guys are there for a long time. That's a long time spent together. So if you can walk to restaurants and shops or things like that, or things are easily accessible, what a difference that makes to just keep all the players engaged, and coaching staff for that matter. We can all remember the MLS's back tournament down in Florida, whenever what was cooped up, you start to be, you start banging on the walls if you don't have all those facilities to get your season going. But let's talk about the season. Let's talk about the roster. When we did talk to you at the end of 2022, there were clearly some areas that you were focusing on, and some possible signings. I'm assuming now the guys that we see that have come in are some of those signings that have come to fruition. Do you feel like you checked some of the boxes, specifically maybe with Miguel Tapias, which we know I think that was a big move for you guys, but not only to get him in now and to be a part of what you want to do, but just another young center back with the ability to play on the left side. And then Mikael Marquez also to come in and kind of help fill that role, maybe until a player like Bakaye Dibassy comes back.
Yeah. No, we're not finished yet. We still have a couple potential things to do. But yeah, that was a big area of concern. Not concern. It was one of the areas we wanted to address. And we think we've had one of the best center back combinations in the league for a couple of years now. Experienced, solid, they have a great relationship. But also with Bakaye's injury, we had to, plan around it. And, all credit to him. He is doing everything possible, and he's such a good pro. So if there's ever anyone to get back early and get back to the level he was at as soon as possible, it would be him. But we did need to, build a contingency around that. So we feel really good with, the 2 players. So Miguel Tapias, more experienced. He's played at Pachuca for a while, high level, Liga MX, at a really good club in Pachuca, won the championship a couple of times on the bounce. So we feel really good about him. Left-footed, we really, this may sound overly obvious, but we really want a left-footed center back playing left center back. Sometimes you just have 2 center backs, and they typically can be both right-footed. And it's just, you can get by, but it's just easier when you have a left-footed player on that side. Everything's just more natural. So we really like Miguel. We signed him to a pre-contract. So if a player's in the last 6 months of their deal, you basically sign them for free. And, he was planning on joining us on July 1st. We wanted to get the deal signed and then try and expedite his arrival date. So we did that, and we were able to work out a deal with Pachuca to get him here early. So he's come in fit. We're waiting to get all his paperwork done, which we think should happen in a couple of days. And we feel really good about him. Good pro, good player, and younger, makes the group much more competitive and deep. So we feel really good about Miguel. Marquez was another signing we really like. The league is going to, a lot of younger signings with the U22 initiative. And we found Mikael playing in Sweden. He's Swedish, Brazilian, really impressive kid, speaks like 37 languages, and really, really incredible talent. He's not the finished article. He's 21 years old, but we think he's going to be a top player. He can play multiple positions. So we see him as a center back, but he plays right back, he plays left center back, he plays left back, and he plays in central midfield. So we think he's got a really bright future. So, as much as anything, we wanted to build some depth, some youth, and we think we've covered that for the years to come. So we feel really good about that. And we have Bakaye Dibassy hopefully joining the group as soon as possible. And, it's going to be very competitive for spots there.
I know in the past, you guys have continued to add, players in the midfield and in the attacking positions. And this offseason, it was a little bit maybe more focused on the back line with just knowing not only the age of Michael Boxall, who still seems to just be like a machine and continue on, but Brett Coleman there as well. And you just talked about the injury to DeBasi. So you added Neil Henry, who was coming off a little bit of an injury plagued time, didn't make the Canadian national team for the World Cup, but ready to, I talked to him a few weeks ago and he just seemed ready to jump in and prove himself. He was pumped to be fit for a whole preseason to be able to compete for a spot. Valentine, obviously, Zarek on the right-hand side also. Then you've got DJ Taylor coming back. You've got Benitez, who I think we found out, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, maybe a little bit more on the attacking side than the defensive side on the right-hand side as a wingback. So was the back line a really point of emphasis? And Kamar Lawrence on the left, we know he's left-footed, but now Neil Fisher's gone, who could play on that left-hand side. So maybe now Tapias could be another one that can play in a back three, a back four, a back five with the left foot. You guys really emphasized the back line this year.
We did. So and we've not had that group together this whole preseason just because there's injuries and guys coming in, but there was definitely an area of emphasis. When you look at your roster build, you have to keep in mind the budget. So that's always kind of a guiding factor. But you want to get better every year. You want to get a little deeper. You want to get younger. So we feel good about all the moves. And I think once everyone's in and ready to go, I think we've got a good group and a deep group, at least two for every spot. And you want that. You want the competitive side. I think all of us need that and it pushes players. We also added Ryan Jiba, who we think is going to be really good. So he came in, he had a couple little couple injury issues. So he's working through those. Kamar Lawrence, like I said, Miguel Tapias, Mikel Marquez, Zarek Valentin, he's a great kid and a great player, big leadership qualities, can play anywhere. Big competition at right back, DJ Taylor and Benitez. So, once we get everyone healthy and in, we feel really good about, whoever is going to win the starting job. And that's really important, so that's going on here. Everyone's on the same page, but there's major competition for places, which is something we want.
Speaking of competition, I know the first couple podcasts I did, I didn't hear anything negative about Cameron Dunbar as far as what he came in, how he came in. Adrian Heath said to me, look, this is a kid, the second he knew he was coming here from LA Galaxy, a young player, 21, I believe he is he wanted all the tapes. He had watched all the film of all of our games last year. He's a learner. He could read the game. He's clearly got some qualities from an athleticism standpoint with speed, but he learns the game, wants to learn the game, reads the game. What have you seen from him? What did you guys like about him?
I've seen exactly that, Kyndra. Honestly, he's a great kid. He had an interesting story. He started in the LA Galaxy first team at 17 and played a lot of games. At the time there was a different coach. Coaches have preferences. They have certain players they want to play, and he was in that group at 17 years old. So that's a big sign of his level of quality. We were pretty fortunate to get him. We thought the new coach came in. He had different players in mind. And their loss is our gain. So he's, like I said, he's 20 years old. He's been in the league 3 years. So you're just do the math, and he's way ahead of schedule. I mean, he would be a college sophomore, and he's got three years of professional soccer. So great kid, has a smile on his face, trains like he plays, which is 100%. And we think he's got a really bright future. So the deal was great for us. Like I said, we felt really fortunate that he was available. So a young, great kid who has a really bright future ahead of him. Competition for places again, so we're really happy with him. Like I said, super positive influence, comes to train hard every day, and he'll be competing for spots as we move forward.
What spot would he be competing for? Who is he pushing right now that's in front of him? Because I know he's got some versatility as well from an attacking role to be able to go forward and get on the end of things, but also create things at the same time. Who do you see him pushing the most so far in preseason?
Well, I think he's got some versatility. So his probably best position would be left midfield, but right-footed. So he's naturally coming inside to the little pockets, but he also wants to run in behind. So I think he can do both. He's soccer player, smart, understands the tactical side. But then if he's wide 1v1 and it's just a 1v1 battle, little trick and get past him, he's got that too. So I think he can play multiple positions. So he'll be pushing the starters that we had last year. So Franco Fragapane, Robin Lode, Bongi. This is a kid that's hungry, and he's going to force them to keep their standard really high, or he's going to be right there. So I think any of those attacking positions, probably comfortable more comfortable wide as opposed to like a central 10, but he does have those type of qualities and wants to run forward. So it's not just getting the ball and playing and moving the ball. It's, wanting to do that, but also run forward and try and score a goal.
A little farther up the field. I know when I talked to Sean Buckley a couple podcasts ago, we were talking about fitness, and he said Luis Amarilla came in incredible shape. Mender Garcia. And, there's also this conversation of Mender in his second year. I mean, he came in so late in the second window last season, and you've seen it 1,000 times over in your roles about what a difference it makes when the guys come back in there next year. And that the same could be said for Arriaga, it could be said for Bongi. So what do you see so far in preseason from a player like Mender, and how did Luis come back in?
Yeah, I think both of them, and the group in general did a really good job of the off season. So it was, was it close to 10 weeks? It's a long time. When we talk about how you manage that 10 weeks, you've had a long season, you want to get some rest, you want to see your family, you have all that stuff, but then you want to make sure you kind of time your schedule correctly. So you're getting your break, then you're starting to work again. And you want to come in, like you said, as fit as possible. You don't need to be 100% fit because that's really only achievable with multiple games. But the guys did a lot of work and it showed. We test them right away to see what level they're at. And the overall level of the group was really high. So Luis and Mender are certainly in that category. And they just continued on. So every day training full on. We've had a pretty hard preseason. There's multiple sessions in a day. It's, soccer in the morning, fitness in the afternoon, and you throw a gym workout in the middle. So it's a long preseason. It's hard, but the fitter you come in, the further ahead you'll be, obviously. Plus, you're more resistant to injuries. I think players that don't do the work, they tend to pick up injuries because we push them pretty hard. So those two especially did come in really sharp, and it's paid off. You can then, as you assess the group, do more soccer work, do more tactical work, which you want to do, but you need to make sure the fitness base is there because it carries you through the season.
You made the comment earlier that there may be a couple additional signings or some things that you're still working on. But when you talk about your general philosophy for how you're looking at building this roster, because you also addressed the depth on the back line and some of the depth in every position, do you guys more look for a player profile to fill? Like, this is the kind of 10 we want. This is the kind of 7, the 11, the winger, whatever. Or do you, and then find that player that fits that? Or do you more have a player in mind already and see where he can fit in Minnesota United's scheme?
Yeah, no, it's more based on a profile that we're looking for. So we'll assess the group. You have to make your decisions based on, all the factors. Obviously, cost is a big part of it. So every year there will be movement because salaries are getting higher. The salary cap did not go higher for a while, so that was really challenging. Salaries are going up, but the cap doesn't. So, naturally something has to change. So it's basically looking at that. Here's our group. Here's where we think we need to get better. We want to get a little younger, have a good balance in the team. We want competition for places. We want, essentially 2 players for every position. And then we make those decisions. We basically build our player profile with some, a range of cost attached to it. And then we go out and look for that player. Sometimes the player doesn't fit exactly, but, you want to have a basic shape and, this is how we play. We do have other systems. So we do look at a secondary system, and we've gone to a 4-3-3 in the past. And that's something we may choose to do. So we actually have what we feel is a really good fit and group to play both systems, but it's pretty much predicated on, this is what we're looking for. Here's our profile. It goes out to, the network, our own people. We're building our recruitment team as we speak. There's a lot of people through our networks over the years, so you send out these profiles and then see what you get back. We analyze the players. We look at the availability. We look at the cost. A lot goes into it, but it really is based off, this is our base system, and this is the type of player we're looking for in that position.
With the reference to cost and budgets and the salary cap having not gone up over the last couple of years, but salaries going up, do you have a number in mind of when you go into the off season, trying to get free agents or trying to get, do you look more in the league based on because of budgets, or do you look, how do you decide what direction you're going to go, international players, or is it really just whatever fits and, finding the quality that you want to fill those holes?
Yeah, I would say a bit of both as well. We obviously look heavily in MLS. There's free agency, there's trades, there's all the end of season mechanisms, the waiver drafts, the reentry drafts, and then we look internationally as well. So it's just trying to put the big puzzle together. So we'll have a team shape. You have placeholders. We're looking at this type of player in this spot. This is where this is the amount of cap space we want to allocate for that spot. But you have to be flexible. You don't know if you're going to get the player you want in this position. So there's a lot of flexibility, but we do have a structure and a bunch of placeholders that we see as a good way forward. But like I said, lots of things change. You don't know if you're going to get the player in free agency. You don't know if the trade's going to work or how much the trade's going to cost. And you don't know what the deal looks like when you're trying to buy a player, transfer fee, salary, all the other things go into it. But as you go, you keep you stick with your basic framework and your placeholders, and then as the players come in, you have to readjust and try to make it all fit. So a lot of work, but you have to be flexible, and hopefully you can get it all together. We have an April 24th deadline date this year for our first window. We want the players for the first day of preseason, and then there's the start of the season. But ultimately, it's the April 24th deadline that signals the end of our window.
Speaking of the puzzle pieces kind of shifting and moving at time and being kind of nimble and flexible, I know there were some rumors early on about some signings and possible signings, and Adrian Heath alluded to it in the very first podcast that we have. Is there anybody so far that has, you thought was right there, and even if you can't name names, or positions that you were really close to acquiring and it hasn't happened, but you still have till this April 24th deadline? Because I also think nobody can fully appreciate how complicated this can be until you've actually sat in that chair, the chair that you're sitting in now, trying to make these deals happen, whether it's agents in different countries and paperwork and transfers and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. I would use the iceberg as the analogy. So the 10% is visible above the water and the 90% below. It's kind of like that. So yeah, a lot of work and intention goes on behind the scenes that is not visible. So we don't really share the targets. It's not something we really do out of respect for the players and the clubs and everyone involved. But yeah, I would say it's probably 90% of the work you do goes unnoticed and comes to nothing. It's like I said, it's finding the right player. He's available. The cost is correct. You never really know the deal until you get into the deal. There's numbers thrown around. You try to assess the market and the value, but you never really know what that looks like until you start negotiating. So there is a lot that goes on behind the scenes, but it's just part of the business.
And I do want to acknowledge quickly, because you talked about how the salary cap didn't go up, but your budgets and the players go up, but how much are you leaning on, or can you lean on sort of the MNUFC 2? And now I know that Minnesota United just announced some new academy signings as far as coaching staff and technical staff, with Fernando Adi coming in with U19s. Are you guys going to be able to lean on some of that academy to fill voids or holes when maybe just for training sessions? Or how's that relationship going to work now that you have some older academy teams that are being formed?
Yeah, so we think this is a game changer for most clubs, but us specifically. So we want that connection from academy to second team to first team. So we're just starting year 2 of MNUFC 2, and I can tell you the quality of the team has increased incredibly from year 1 to 2. So it's a big part of our roster build. We hope one day that the academy kids will kind of fuel that team. And there's already 3 or 4 academy kids that are in the second team that we think have potential to be in the first team. So, and then there's probably nothing we enjoy more to see young local kids come through our academy. They develop, they do well enough to get to the second team. And now you can play someone like Carlos Leatherman in the second team. He's playing essentially professional soccer he's not even ready for college yet. So he's been with us the whole preseason, 17 years old. He played in central midfield yesterday. He's probably a right back. There's nothing we want more. So this is really, really big for us. And the second team, it's not just the academy kids. That's the preferred pathway. But there's a lot of kids we found through the draft, through foreign kids, a bunch of different places to find these players. The pathway is not always really clear to get into the MLS first team. There are these opportunities, but you have to be conscious of foreign spots, acquisition costs. It's a little bit more prohibitive than you think. But we think it's going to be a big developmental plays for our kids. And if they do well enough, and if the pathway fits in terms of all the roster mechanisms, they can actually play in the first team, as an academy or a second team player. So really exciting. Like I said, we're only just starting year 2, and the connection is great. Like I said, we have academy players training with our first team in preseason, and just think of that in terms of the developmental pathway. It's pretty good. If you're good enough, you will get there. And we now have that connection between the 3 teams.
We do want to address, of course, the elephant in the room as we're talking about versatility of players and tactically how you guys can change formations and systems and move people around. And I know Adrian addressed this as well in his media availability, but Emmanuel Reynoso, to my knowledge, is still not in camp yet. And I know, his status may be a little bit up in the air, but what does that mean for you as a staff? And from technical standpoint and from a coaching standpoint, how do you replace an Emmanuel Reynoso? And I don't mean replace like he's not showing up, but how do you compensate for a player like that technically, tactically, and sort of what can you tell us about where that situation lies from your guys' standpoint?
Yeah, so I won't say anything more than what's been reported. He's not here. I think that's we put a statement out a couple of days ago. But for us, we keep moving forward. I think the one benefit our group has, and we talked about it a little bit earlier in terms of finding players for different formations. I think we've got a lot of players that are pushing for spots, and we can do something different tactically. If we don't play with a number 10, we can do something different. Like I said, we've played a lot of 4-3-3, a couple other different formations, so we have that potential to be flexible, and we've been doing that this preseason. So it's next one up type of mentality. You do your best with whatever situation you're working through, whether the player's not here yet, he's injured. It's all kind of similar. We have a focus in the group that we just move forward with the ones that are available for selection. So we have a lot of players that can do that. Robin Load, we have Kervin Arriaga, central midfielder that can play a little bit higher, or a wide player that can come inside. There's Cameron Dunbar. We can play with 2 strikers. So we have a really flexible group, and Adrian's doing a great job of putting that all together.
And I'd be remiss if we didn't mention, Hassani Dotson. I'm not sure exactly where he's at in his rehab and when he's going to be available to step on the pitch. But you talk about a player that was so instrumental in what you guys wanted to do in his first couple of years, even coming in as a rookie, can play right back, can play in the middle. You've got Will Trapp, Arriaga, Rosales. You mentioned Robin. You have players that tuck inside like Fragapane. Even Dunbar likes to come inside on that left-hand side. So it's not like you don't have options. But yeah, I think that when you have versatility and depth in those positions, it's going to help regardless, whether it's a player missing or it's a player being injured.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like I said, we feel really good about that group and guys being able to do different things. Take Robin Load, for example. He's probably best on the right side, coming inside on his left foot. He can play the 10, which he does really well. He played a lot of time, and we were at our best when he was playing central midfield. When we had our Western Conference playoff run, he played number 9. So, just there, you have players that can play different spots and be really effective. So we're looking at the big picture on that, knowing that we've got coverage to do a bunch of different things in a bunch of different ways.
I don't know how many preseason games or scrimmages you guys have left on the slate, but when you, I don't know when you arrived in California, but when you showed up, where does the group feel like this team is? Did they accomplish what they wanted to thus far in preseason, not just based on results, but based on what everybody kind of wanted to see?
Yeah. So, I will say this, you always want to win. I think that's a basic statement, but preseason really is different. So we've had a challenging preseason. There's been injuries. You're waiting for players to get their visas and come in. Some still need to get their visas. So it's really about, at the end of it, you feel the group is fit, healthy. They're all on the same page. They have an understanding of what you want to do tactically, and they're ready to go for the season. So, we'll have our final game this Saturday, which ultimately is you kind of build up for that point. You want your main group to play 90 minutes prior to the first game of the season. That's kind of the main objective, getting through the end of preseason. But even yesterday, we played San Jose Earthquakes. The facility where we're at allows you to do a bunch of different things. So there was an actual game, but then we went and played an extra 45 minutes on a little side field. So we played a second team, they played a first team, and it's just going through things, getting fitness. We had I think 6 players 21 or younger playing in that group yesterday. And that was really nice to see. They played against San Jose's first team. They had a little bit too much quality for them. But you're able to do those types of things in preseason. Carlos Leatherman, 17 years old, played in midfield against Carlos Grezzo, who's, they just spent $5 million on him, and he did really well. So there's all these different things that go on. It's not just, hey, we want to win every single game and then carry that into the season. We certainly want to win, but there are much bigger objectives, in preseason. But everyone kind of takes that last game, that last weekend of preseason as the real litmus test going into the season. So you want to be healthy. You want to get as many of your players in, your new signings, visas, all that stuff, and have a good shape and understanding, and have everyone on the same page going into that first game. So that's the objective coming in Saturday. We're getting a lot healthier. So Kamar Lawrence is fit again. We think Tapias will be available. Mikel Marquez is in. Like I said, the group is fit. They've worked hard. We will train hard the day before game because we think that's the amount of work to do for the long haul. So you're sacrificing quality in the game, but because you wanna overload them, and normally you would do very little. We have a kind of a 4-day build up to a game. That's very different in preseason. You will work pretty hard the day before your game in preseason. Some teams even train the morning of the game quite hard. So it's not just, oh, we lost. That's, it's really negative. You have to look at all the things that go into it. So, the game yesterday, our first team group did really well. They beat the Quakes group. Our younger guys played initially, and they played against a really good team. They lost, but there was a lot of real positives and a lot of things to take out of the game.
Well, I'm sure that by the time you guys head to Dallas for the February 25th opener, there'll be a little extra oomph in that game anyways, with how the season ended last year. So I'm excited to see you guys on February 25th. And of course, excited to see what else maybe happens for this roster before April, before the trade deadline or the transfer window closes. But I do think I'm sure everybody's chomping at the bit to see this group back on opening day, March 11th at Allianz Field. So either way, all good things to come. And I appreciate you taking the time to join me today.
Thanks, Kyndra. Always a pleasure.
All right, great. Thanks, Wado. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.
Thank you once again, everybody, for joining us for another Sound of the Loons episode presented by Allina Health Orthopedics. And of course, tune in again next week for another fabulous guest and a little more insight into Minnesota United's opening day, February 25th, of course, against FC Dallas, a rematch of last year's playoff game. Thanks again and have a great weekend.